Two women exchange houses in different countries during the Christmas season in The Holiday. And a cynical diamond smuggler teams up with a poor African fisherman to find a rare jewel in Blood Diamond.
Apocalypto is Mel Gibson's Mesoamerican Fantasia, and Eragon is the story of a land where there be dragons.
All this plus a discussion of the films of Mel Gibson on Cinema Scene. Hello, I'm Mort Marcus, film critic and former film instructor at Cabrillo College.
And I'm Richard Von Busak, film critic for Metro Newspapers.
Another sad day.
Yeah.
Really a great character actor, Peter Boyle, passed away actually more than a week ago at the age of 71.
He was not the not the man that was responsible for the phrase "sore as a boil," but he certainly he always played outrage very well. Angry New York types, especially. He has a small but diamond-hearted little bit of acting, and Taxi Driver is one of Travis Bickle's fellow cabbies sitting around munching on donuts. I guess everybody loves him from Young Frankenstein, where he does a very unkind to the speech-impaired version of Putting on the Ritz, an old Gary Cooper number.
He was great in that, unforgettable, because he was a very, very funny actor also.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to even talk about him was that everyone out there thinks that this guy came alive for Everyone Loves Raymond, the TV show.
I know.
But he has got a whole lifetime career, and the first time I saw him was back in the end of the 60s, which was really his heyday with independent film, when he did a film called Joe, which was amazing.
Yes, that was there was a movie about a kind of like a couple of ad guys that end up going hunting hippies, as I recall. He's a hard hat.
He's a hard hat.
He's a hard hat,
who
as he used to say.
Who hates hippies and anything that's not true blue American. And his acting job is so ferocious and vicious. It is one of those enraged New York types as you were talking about.
I think it'd probably be like very timely now. I'd love to see it now.
Very timely, because it really had to do with Vietnam. Then he did one of the great, and it hasn't been around in a while, late 60s films called Steelyard Blues with Jane Fonda, and he was again magnificent.
I think they filmed that up here, actually, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, in San Francisco. A lot of San Francisco actors from the committee.
Yeah. Okay, Mel Gibson's Apocalypto is a pre-Columbian adventure story about the tribe of Jaguar Paw, played by Rudy Youngblood. It starts with some gusty comedy taking place after a hunting party, including mother-in-law jokes that were somehow left out of the Popol Vuh. And then a group of studded and bone-covered slavers arrive to rape the women, massacre the children, and carry off the men. Then begins jungle adventure of the old school, with a city of decadent Mayans cutting out hearts and sacrificing them to their sun god. But our hero escapes, out Tarzaning Tarzan in his run for freedom. Mort, I guess for me, this film is the exact kind of film for which the phrase "it is what it is" was coined. Its intense brutality is matched at least by a thoroughgoing thrust. I mean, the central section alone, implying a kind of hideous conveyor belt in which this decadent civilization, supposedly the Mayans, I guess, are like pulling slaves out of the countryside and bringing them up to the pyramid and cutting out their hearts. Then it kind of downshifts into sort of a new version of The Naked Prey. It bounces along. I really, people who find depth in this kind of surprise me. But what did you think of it?
I'm going to surprise you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I'd like to hear.
Actually,
I'd like to hear.
it's not depth. I mean, there's a reason why they're collecting slaves. It is drought and has been drought for a long time, and they're really just trying to collect a lot of sacrifice victims to the sun god.
No, I mean, I knew that wasn't just, they weren't just getting the hearts just for the thrill.
Your introduction was devastating, Richard, and it will make what I'm saying sound absolutely absurd. I know that archaeologists are really arguing with this film.
Yes.
It is a fantasy.
Yeah.
They're arguing that the brutality of the Mayans they've been made into savages, and I'll talk about that in another film. But I've got to say, I went into this film really wanting to hate it. And it just captured me within 5 minutes. It brought me into another world. It brought me into Mel Gibson's imagination and his imaginative world, and that's what films are to do. The directing of this thing, the scenes, the editing, and the cinematography,
which actually is for shot on digital. It's extraordinary.
It is. And
the great jungle locations. I think it's just for me, it's the writing that just it just throws me every time. It does. It is certainly a vision, and I don't think it. I mean, as far as hating Gibson, I really. I mean, there's been so many great films made by people who are much worse anti-Semites than him.
Right. Good.
I mean,
well
let it pass, right? I mean, and that's not the reason. I don't think that's the reason why people are rebelling against this film. I mean, look at it. They embraced Barat for
Right.
So really, essentially, for me, though, I just think it's. I think it's very, very simple-minded.
It may be. I mean, certainly, it's not a film about character.
No.
Okay.
No,
but for being a chase film, and it is a chase film.
Yeah.
I mean,
it bounces along.
you have to use some of these formulas because there are just so many plots you have. And I will really admit that the last 10 minutes of this film, down in the pit giving birth, was
I've seen film of the Russian water babies.
Yes.
I was almost willing to go with that, and but that's almost like saying I know the Mayans did this. I saw a mural on the side of somebody's van.
We're going to talk about Mel Gibson, so I'm going to save more of my comments for later.
Okay, that sounds
good.
But
I really was shockingly impressed with this film.
Okay.
Amanda Cameron Diaz is a wealthy, hard-edged Hollywood businesswoman who can't keep a man, and Iris, Kate Winslet, is a copy editor for a British newspaper who for 3 years has carried a torch for Jasper, Rufus Sewell, a cad about town, in Nancy Meyers' romantic comedy, The Holiday. Frustrated with their lives, the two women hook up by email, decide to trade houses over Christmas. In England, Amanda meets Graham, Jude Law. And in Hollywood, Iris meets Miles. What? Jack Black? There are some surprises, and women will love this out-and-out chick film that Nancy Meyers wrote as well as directed. Richard, there are just holiday films and holiday romantic comedies They are schlocky. They are syrupy. You
They're
just don't buy
plasticky in
them.
this case.
And this is one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to recommend it. I know everything that's wrong with this film.
Yeah.
I think women are really going to love it. It was shot for them. It was written for them by the director.
Well, the budget.
But
is,
let me just say one more.
Yeah,
the
sure.
other one that's out now is The Pursuit of Happiness, which is again so sugary that go see it. You know, have a good time. But there are interesting aspects of this film, which I hope we'll talk about.
Yeah, plus the male version of this is We Are Marshall, which is coming out. The budget is as high as the concept. The concept is very high. It depends upon this one little matter of like why would two people switch houses, and which seems like I mean, basically all you can ask out of a film like this, besides good production values, is symmetry, and it doesn't have symmetry because somewhere along the line they realized nobody wants to see Jack Black nibbling on a girl's ear.
Beautiful.
So it's very asymmetrical. They prop up that side, the Los Angeles side, with Kate Winslet. In L.A., they prop it up with her romance with apparently a very tenured composer of soundtrack music for the movies. She also finds like a senior citizen to adopt, played by the great Eli Wallach. But that just doesn't have the romantic heft that the other side of it with
Right.
Cameron Diaz in London with Jude Law.
So you got 3/4 or 2/3 of the film is really looking at Cameron Diaz and Jude Law, which is very nice to look at.
Yeah.
In fact, the director, Nancy Myers, and her cameraman or cinematographer seem to be in love with Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
They are giving so many close-ups of her and Jude Law, and when they get a chance, Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
But you've hit the nail on the head, and it was very obvious when the film was going on. Nancy Myers anyway, cannot imagine Jack Black as a romantic lead.
This thing is really like overlong, and
and more, 2.5 hours.
Yeah. On the other hand, you could really, as you were saying, you could make a total essay on the decline of the romantic film from this movie. The numerous citations to the classic romances of Hollywood are undercut with the kind of romances we saw in the 50s, where it was just basically, how can I put as much real estate as possible in a cinemascope lens? And it's just like look how huge this place is to live, and it's just real estate has replaced sex. What can you say?
I want to say that the interesting aspects of this was how technology got in here. They hook up by email. There is all of this cell phone, once a wonderful little, or it could have been better, a 3-way telephone conversation between two people in English and Hollywood.
I've seen that gag before.
Okay, I guess I haven't.
It's really a very rubbery, plasticky movie, and all you have to do is go back to these originals she's citing to see why it's gone so wrong.
But I do want to cite Eli Wallach. Just marvelous, marvelous piece. Here's the guy, folks, when you see him, who was the ugly bandito in The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and has done so much other good work.
Somewhere not too far from the domain of the wizard Peter Jackson lies the realm of Stefan Fangmeyer, a longtime special effects director now making his directorial debut. Fangmeyer's hero, Eragon, is a typically glamorous and poshly accented farm boy, played by Edward Spelliers. He raises a dragon from the egg stage, and he names the creature Saphira. It's voiced by Rachel Weisz. Then it is quest time through a land of spells, weird languages, and armies of torch-bearing baldies with tribal tattoos and the most painful-looking contact lenses this side of a rave. On the sidelines are Jumon Hyun-soo as a magus or something, Jeremy Irons as a wandering, heart-sick warrior full of the usual aphorisms, and Robert Carlyle as a cackling shade. One thing I'll give this, and that's that it was filmed in Hungary. So there's like a lot of these, I would guess, like Carpathians or some woods out there that look very fairy tale like when you see flying over them, these aerial dragon shots. But Lord, this was dumb. Oh, it was so derivative.
Actually, I thought there were a lot of bat shots.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it has all the elements of the Star Wars plot. Jeremy Irons is Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, the whole wisdom figure thing.
Yeah.
What was wrong with this film is that the acting was not very good.
No.
You were aware creakingly of moving from one set cliche to another. What it didn't have, and I'm going to say it before you do, because I know you want to say
please
it,
go ahead.
is that this was not Lord of the Rings or the Fellowship of the Rings, and you can really see by this film how magical that other film was. That it had the energy, that it had characters who you could go through this world of disbelief with and really just get into that wonderful, wonderful motion picture. This one just fell flat on its dragon's nose.
It is really tragic too. I mean, naming the film Eragon, which sounds so much like Aragorn, you know. Yeah.
But of course, it's based on a series of novels, of children's novels, and it just doesn't work.
If you're over 10, you're going to suffer.
When we return, we will be discussing the films of Mel Gibson.
Punk Horror Podcast, coming to you every other week from Punk Horror Press, featuring The Punk and the Pastor, a movie review show featuring Gabriel Yanis and Stacey Campbell, and Author Red Fiction, featuring the best in horror and punk fiction. Don't miss it. Subscribe now at www.punkhorror.com.
The films of Mel Gibson, he's really only directed 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a big star, and now for the last 2, he's used a lot of his own money. But he's directed 3 films. Just name them: Braveheart, The Passion of the Christ, and now Apocalypto.
Right.
So make your first comments, my dear friend.
Well, I'll tell you. I think it's probably not since like, I guess, Bud Bowditcher have you seen anyone so interested in the rituals of punishment as the capping part of any adventure film. Gibson, who seemed like a very insouciant lover of the action movie in the old days, when you saw him in the Mad Max movies, which were just like nothing but chase and nothing as innocent of deeper and more painful context than as a Warner Brothers cartoon, has suddenly become, I guess, had some sort of latent life wrestling with religion and the spirituality and the idea of how much punishment a hero must take. He's another one of those guys that got kind of hit over the head real hard with a copy of A Hero with a Thousand Faces. I think that's what I find especially repellent in his films, is the emphasis on torture. They're like waiting, sitting there and waiting for the torture sequence to begin, is what throws me off of his films. What about you?
Well, about The Hero with a Thousand Faces and Late in Life, I think he's just been a very, very strict Catholic, an old school Catholic. He does not like the new changes the church is going through.
Right. Yeah, he's like a Latin master.
There is definitely this sense of the hero suffering, the hero going through trials, and I think that would be very acceptable. It certainly was acceptable in The Passion of the Christ, and I think it would be acceptable if it just wasn't so bloody and gory to the American audience.
That's the core of his audience, and unfortunately, it's a very small core. I think you have that kind of Venn diagram that accompanies love of gore with like a real religious context, and now we've seen from the failing box office on this that there's like a peak of young men that want to make sure they can take it, that they can watch this and like take all this suffering, and then it falls off after that.
To me, there has been a definite progression in the films, not as far as content are concerned, but I think the films have gotten better and better, and I think content aside, I think that he really is more than a first-rate director. I mean, when I look at this film, and I do look at them dispassionately, I can't get involved in them emotionally. When I look at the shots, when I look at the editing,
emotionally either. You got a nail on the head. It's too distancing. It's not that I don't think punishment's a part of life, but it's
extreme, and it's not realistic in the end. It's very stylized, everything, even the shooting. But the point that I want to make is that he really just lays out these scenes,
Right.
and gets great cinematographers. And I'm sure he's doing most of the editing, because I think it almost looks like it's storyboarded. He is really an amazing director. And content aside, but as I said, I was totally sucked into Apocalypto. And as you know, I really thought that The Passion of the Christ really worked as well.
Well, that's that's where I have to depart from.
Right,
I find it, I think that it just misses so much of the aspects of the story that could have been so emotionally involving,
Right.
because he's so fascinated with the rituals of pain. You know, so.
Anyway, it's 1999. Brutal times in the African nation of Sierra Leone. A civil war is raging in the country, and the different rebel factions buy arms and seek aid with diamonds they pan from the jungle-shrouded rivers. In Edward Zwick's Blood Diamond, Solomon Vandy, a poor fisherman, Jaman Hansu, forced to work for the rebels, finds a rare blood diamond, hides it under some trees, and escapes during a government raid. When his son is kidnapped, he goes along with Danny Archer, a cynical diamond smuggler, Leonardo DiCaprio, to retrieve the diamond and hopefully find his son, who has been captured by the rebels. Meanwhile, a vicious rebel leader and outside forces are at work to get the diamond for themselves.
Where did you bury it? The only reason you're still alive is because you haven't told anyone where it is.
You will find it for me.
My son! Where is my son?
What if I helped you find your family? That makes us partners!
I am not your partner!
You're using him.
I'm using him, and you are using me, and this is how it works.
You're gonna steal this diamond.
I am his father! I must go find him!
You gonna show us where it's hidden?
That diamond is the only chance he has of getting his son back.
What if I wanted to go with you?
Hold on!
I don't give a damn who's down there. Kill them all.
Give it to me.
Get him where it is! Get him!
My family, my home, I don't lost everything. I will find you. If it takes my life.
Richard, Edward Zwick has made some good action films.
Yeah.
The Siege, Courage Under Fire,
Glory.
and Glory back in 1989. But this film, it seems to me, is just a total what would you call it?
Wretched excess. I mean, I think it's. I think basically
Exploitation,
things like
that's
this
what
are
I think.
especially painful because there is a very good argument to be made that this is enlightening people to the source of the actual human misery that's behind their gemstones.
Right.
Not those of us who aren't going to be picking up 10 or 12 on our way home from the office. Might ask like, well, yeah, we knew about this already.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did know about this, and now we have to sit through this really very cliche-ridden action movie, and just highly improbable, and in which the massive figure of Africa is played by Jimon Hunsu, who always looks like a Herb Block drawing of suffering Africa, an editorial cartoon, is like once again the sidekick.
Yeah.
No matter how much he protests, how much he raises his roaring voice, he's like reduced to a sidekick next to Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. And let me say,
Yeah.
the word I was thinking of is this exploits the situation.
Yeah, I would say, but
but-
it exploits it. No, I think that's a little bit rough because I'm sure everybody here is really concerned about this, and they have like a lot of agony about this situation. I mean,
Well, I'm not
but they
talking
have
about
best
the diamonds.
intentions.
I agree with you about the
Yeah.
diamonds, and it was one of the things that my wife and I talked about came out. There are people who don't know
Yeah.
that this is going on.
And the rest
are
of us
buying
must be
diamonds.
educated at their
But
quality.
the characterizations also are so muddled.
Oh,
the
God.
story is so confused. What is Leonardo DiCaprio doing? He doesn't even know what he's doing. And he is again in one of these macho roles that he was in Gangs of New York, and you just don't
I
believe
don't
it.
People are calling him like, or likening him to Bogart. I think their eyes
crazy.
checked.
I mean,
just like the lines he has. I mean, God, there's like stuff in there's dialogue in this movie that reminds me of like those really lousy westerns you'd watch at 3 a.m, where the Southerner would do the lines about how we didn't care about slavery, we were just defending our homes from the Yankees.
And the door,
he is like this. There was no apartheid in the foxholes.
That's the ones where the doors slam in the farmhouse and the whole house almost goes down.
It was like that.
Cardboard
rattly,
sets. This is really, I was really offended by this movie.
I'm glad you said that too. I thought it was offensive. I was outraged by it, and I'm astonished to hear the kind of reviews it's getting.
So I therefore say to you, when we return, we will have Video Corner.
For more full episodes, clips from the show, and links to the new audio version of this podcast, please visit us at kpn.typepad.com/cinemascene. For updates sent directly to your newsreader or podcatcher, subscribe to feeds.feedburner.com/cinemascene. And of course, you can always simply search for us in the iTunes Music Store. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, I'd really like to do this time is just before the Christmas holiday or the seasonal, the Festivus holiday, is recommend a kind of an obscure Christmas movie that's a favorite of mine by Bill Forsyth, the once well-known Scottish director of Gregory's Girl and of Housekeeping with Christine Lottie,
and Local Hero.
Local Hero, a movie I love.
Yeah.
Well, this is a Christmas movie of sorts. It's a depressed Christmas movie, and it's set in Glasgow, and it's about the misadventures of a radio DJ called Alan Bird, who's known as Dickie Bird, who gets involved with a sort of mafioso war between a pair of feuding ice cream truck companies. One is just called Mr. Bunny. Let's have a look at the clip right now.
Mr. Swan. Bird. Make yourself at home. I'll be with you in a jiffy. I wouldn't lie there. That's another £20 an hour. Oh. It's mostly used for group therapy nowadays, anyway. So I hear you have a friend called Mr. Bunny.
Not a friend, no. Somebody I'm helping. And I'm helping all of them, all the Mr. Bunnies.
How long have you been associating with these Mr. Bunnies?
All week. Since Maddie left.
Maddie?
Yeah, my girl. Yeah, she left me. Yeah. We've been together for 4 years. Yeah. It's a bit of a shock.
How did that happen?
A removal truck came one night and she left. It was very sudden, yes. Quite a shock.
How was your relationship with Maddie?
It was fine. Oh, well, I thought it was fine. Yes, I thought we were a very good team.
Do you have a healthy sexual relationship?
Very healthy, I thought.
Any abnormal sexual practices?
This is a really wacko, hilarious comedy, as all of Forsyth's are. In fact, everyone out there should just go see and pick up as many of these Forsyth films we talked about.
Yeah, this one's Comfort and Joy. It's a very Christmassy one.
Right. Right now, let us go to our films.
Apocalypto, are you going to recommend it?
I am definitely going to recommend it.
I'm going to go with it because I think people know what they're up against.
Okay, great. The Holiday?
Can't recommend it.
To save on my reputation with women, I'm going to go for it.
Okay, fair enough. Eragon?
Absolutely not.
Not even for dragons.
No.
And then Blood Diamond?
Not even for diamonds.
Not even for diamonds' sake, yeah.
We want to wish everyone out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And we'll be doing our top 10 next episode.
Yep. I'm Mort Marcus.
Richard Von Busak here.
And this has been another Cinema Scene.